The property is not his, but mother's. There are 15 serfs, if I remember. 22 in all, added Timofeek in a dissatisfied tone. The shuffling of slippers was heard and Vasily Ivanovich reappeared. In a few minutes your room will be ready to receive you, he exclaimed triumphantly. Arkady Nikolaich? I think that's how I should call you. And here is your servant, he added, indicating a boy with close-cropped hair, who had come in with him, wearing a long blue kaftan with holes in the elbows and a pair of boots which did not belong to him. His name is Fedka, I repeat again, though my son has forbidden it. You must not expect anything grand. But this fellow knows how to fill a pipe. You smoke, of course? I prefer to smoke cigars, answered Arkady. And you're quite right there. I like cigars myself, but in these remote parts it is extremely difficult to get them. Enough crying poverty, interrupted Bazarov. You had better sit down on the sofa here and let us have a look at you. Vasily Ivanovich laughed and sat down. His face was very much like his son's, only his brow was lower and narrower, his mouth rather wider, and he never stopped making restless movements, shrugged his shoulders as though his coat cut him under the armpits, blinked, cleared his throat and gesticulated with his fingers, whereas his son's most striking characteristic was the nonchalant immobility of his manner. Crying poverty, repeated Vasily Ivanovich. You must suppose, Yevgeny, that I want our guest, so to speak, to take pity on us, by making out that we live in such a wilderness. On the contrary, I maintain that for a thinking man there is no such thing as a wilderness. At least I try, as far as possible, not to grow rusty, so to speak, not to fall behind the times. Vasily Ivanovich drew out of his pocket a new yellow silk handkerchief, which he had found time to snatch up when he ran over to Arkady's room, and flourishing it in the air, he went on. I am not speaking now of the fact that I, for instance, at the cost of quite considerable sacrifices to myself, have put my peasants on the rent system and given up my land to them in return for half the proceeds. I considered it my duty. Common sense alone demands that it should be done, though other landowners don't even think about doing it. But I speak now of the sciences, of education. Yes, I see you have here the friend of health for 1855, remarked Bazarov. That was sent me by an old comrade as a friendly gesture, Vasily Ivanovich hastily announced, but we have, for instance, some idea even of phrenology, he added, addressing himself principally to Arkady, and pointing out a small plaster head on the cupboard, divided into numbered squares, even SCH diaresis lane is not unknown to us, and Rademacher. Do people still believe in Rademacher in this province? Inquired Bazarov. Vasily Ivanovich cleared his throat. In this province, of course, gentlemen, you know better, how could we keep pace with you? You are here to take our places. Even in my time, there was a so-called humorist Hoffman, and a certain Brown with his vitalism. They seemed very ridiculous to us, but they, too, had great reputations at one time. Someone new has taken Rademacher's place with you. You bow down to him, but in another 20 years it will probably be his turn to be laughed at. For your consolation I can tell you, said Bazarov, that we nowadays laugh at medicine altogether and bow down to nobody. How do you mean? Surely you want to be a doctor? Yes, but the one doesn't prevent the other. Vasily Ivanovich poked his middle finger into his pipe, where a little smoldering ash was left. Well, perhaps, I'm not going to dispute. What am I? A retired army doctor, valet too, and now farming has fallen to my lot. I served in your grandfather's brigade, he addressed himself to Arkady again. Yes, I have seen many sights in my time. And I mixed with every kind of society. I myself, the man you see before you, have felt the pulse of Prince Wittgenstein and of Zhukovsky. They were in the Southern Army, the 14th, you understand, and here Vasily Ivanovich pursed his lips significantly. I knew them all inside out. Well, but my work was only on one side. Stick to your lancet and be content. Your grandfather was a very honorable man and a real soldier. Confess, he was a regular blockhead, remarked Bazarov lazily. Ah, Yevgeny, How can you use such an expression? Do consider, of course General Kirsanov was not one of those. Well, drop him, interrupted Bazarov. As I was driving along I was pleased to see your birch plantation, it has sprung up admirably. Vasily Ivanovich brightened. And you must see the little garden I've got now. I planted every tree myself. I have fruit, raspberries and all kinds of medicinal herbs. However much you young gentlemen may know, old Paracelsus spoke the sacred truth, in urbis, verbis et lapidibus. I've retired from practice, as you know, but at least twice a week something happens to bring me back to my old work. They come for advice, I can't drive them away, and sometimes the poor people need help. Indeed, there are no doctors here at all. One of the neighbors here, a retired major, just imagine it, he doctors the people too. I asked the question, has he studied medicine? They answer, no, he hasn't studied, he does it more from philanthropy, ha. Ha. From philanthropy. What do you think of that? Ha. Ha. Fedka. Fill me a pipe, said Bazarov sternly. And there's another doctor here who had just visited a patient, continued Vasily Ivanovich in a kind of desperation, but the patient had already gone ad patres, the servant wouldn't let the doctor in, and tells him, you are no longer needed. He never expected this, got confused and asked. Well, did your master hiccup before he died?